Tuperas y tuperas. Today on Dupe by the River, boy, was it a crazy day for answers for the Union. We're going to recap everything that went down on Thursday, July 7th. We're going to look back briefly at the Columbus Crew match this past Sunday, the day before 4th of July. We're going to look ahead at what the MLS is calling part of their rivalry week special against DC United. We're going to talk all about that here today. Don't go anywhere because you not want to miss this episode of Dupe by the River. Let's get started, guys.
Dupe by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Dupe by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of Dupe by the River, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this live, welcome, and thank you for spending some time with us. We make sure if you guys enjoy the content, you love the Philadelphia Union, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe for all of your live viewings. And, of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts. We're available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. You can find us under Dupe by the River Podcasts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you today, my expert in duping, and please welcome Justin Double Fine Friedberg. What's up, Justin? How you feeling today?
Pretty good, it's whenever you have a 2-game road stand, it kind of feels like, and especially in a short week, it feels like you've been gone for a while. It just has to give it to that weird feeling, but. We got a Friday night game to talk about. Thank God we wait till Thursday night to record because we got a fuck ton of news to talk about. And listen, I say whenever I'm here, I'm always happy, baby.
Yeah, there we go. What's better than talking about the Philadelphia Union? It's funny though. We were gonna do a Dupe by the River / Union match recap last Wednesday. And I text Justin, and I was pissed off, and like it was hard as it was going live on camera. And Justin was like, "You don't want to see me right now." I was like, "Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about." So I feel you, Justin.
the exact text was, "Hey, you still want to record it?" And I'm just like sitting there pissed at my phone, and I'm typically not if a loss happens, yeah, it's the second loss, but I'm like,
right,
the manner of the loss, it was just an ugly game. I'm like. No, because if I start talking, I'm bound to say something that's just gonna that is gonna get clipped, and then it's gonna be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and I'm like, yeah, me angry is not a recipe for good soccer talk by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, so I think you guys were saved from last Wednesday, but Justin, let's dive into it, man, because we gotta dive. There's a lot that happened today. Like, I don't remember such a congested news day for the Union. But let's start off with the first, what we woke up to. The Jack DeVries confirmation. This is something we've heard linger around over the past couple of weeks. Made official, sold off to Venezia. Weird part, no transfer fee disclosed. So really curious about that. Obviously, with what we felt with Brendan Aronson, we were hoping some sort of a sell clause. I don't think that's going to happen, but real quick, this continues solidifying our academy, man. Like, just your thoughts on the move overall for DeVries to Venezia.
I mean, I think it was a foregone conclusion. He was doing so well on loan there. We had heard the rumblings for a long time. This was just confirmation of that fact. Listen, would I've loved for him to have gotten a chance? Yeah. Unfortunately, the timing of his rise coincided with the team going away from wingers. He's a winger. Like, people were like, oh, you could have played him as a second forward. We've seen that before. We've seen that with David Accam. Fafa had mixed success as a winger forced into a second forward. Like, I think there's that expectation that, oh, they're good enough, they'll make it work. There's a bit of a difference between playing out wide and playing centrally. It's why, people talk about Christian Pulisic. What's the best position for him when he's played centrally or out wide? Like, those type of players that are forwards but are more winger by nature, there's a big difference between making those runs from out wide and making the runs centrally. So like I said, I would have loved to see him play, but there's a potential. Like I said, it obviously with the undisclosed fee, I'm sure they got something because he was a first team player. It wasn't like he was an academy player where they only get a nominal amount for that kind of a transfer.
Right.
I am genuinely curious, but I think Venezia, we saw it last year. They're one of the new teams that, hey man, why not bring in all the Americans? They got Tessman, they got Busio for now. I mean, I don't know. I keep hearing people say that he's going to leave, but there's been no rumors. Like they're they're one of the new between them and Leeds. I don't know who's trying to be the vie for the passions of the American fan base.
Yeah, and then both of these clubs are really going to put a dent in Justin's pocket as well because he's going to have to buy some new kits, man.
Oh no, yeah, Venezia just dropped their kit, and I looked and I'm just like no, because I learned I avoided temptation with their last ones because it was like $150. I bet it's gonna be $150 again, and I love soccer jerseys. But I'm not spending north of $100.
Let me
Are you kidding me?
let's put some of our, if you haven't already, or some of our listeners into a little bit of a secret. It's called DHgate. All right, it's fabulous site. All right, you don't need to flex on nobody. I know no one cares if it's real or not. It looks real. That's all that matters. And
Actually, I'll even promote an American business.
What are we doing, these people?
one that is Away Days.
Okay,
it's a business out of Boston, and the guy who runs it is a really nice guy. That's where I get some of the kits I've gotten from La Liga and Ecuador. Like I've gotten some of these crazy kits from mystery kits, and they're $20-$30.
Okay,
and they got some of the nice Icarus kits on their site. Okay. So. And like I said, you're not spending more than 70, 75. So my rule of thumb has always been I don't spend more than $100 on the jersey at all. And that's why I typically will get the replicas instead of authentics. One, because I like the feel, but two, I prefer, I want to be smart. Like I love a good jersey, but I'm not going to go crazy with it. So you got to be, find the right deals. Start looking USL kits you can get for under $100. And trust me, some of the best kits that I've seen drop are in USL. I got a Pittsburgh Riverhounds goalkeeper kit when I was in Pittsburgh.
That was it. The Tulsa? Was it the Tulsa? No, you had some Oklahoma City.
Oh, there was OKC Energy. A friend that worked for the team. I did not get that jersey. I was disappointed I didn't get that one, but I'm going up to Hartford Athletic in a few weeks.
There you go.
And you bet I'm going to get one of their jerseys. Like you can get jerseys around this country for not break an arm and a leg. So it's all the big five teams from from overseas. That's where it's like all the crazy money because they and then the Euro snobs will say, wow, this is a great Grandma's like, yeah, and how much did you spend for that? I'm like, I could get like two USL kits for that price.
Two of them. That's what we're teaching you how to save some money on soccer jerseys because we know how it can be here. But Justin, in the midst of this news, the Union actually snuck the Matish Orovich. Like they try to sneak that from us, and they both sides agreed, the Union and Orovich, that they terminated the contract. Thus, one of the most interesting stories, memes to ever come to Union. Union Twitter, I guess we could say. The sexy season was like a term we really used, I feel like, for the latter part of 4 months of 2020, which was a wild year, as we all remember. But he's gone, and he'll be known as the biggest whiff that Ernst Sander had. But I think that's okay. Some of the moves he's been making.
Yeah, I think. Listen, you spent a decent amount of money on him. I mean, around $1 million.
Yeah, like at one point, yeah.
But like we talked about it. The fact that out of like all the players that Ernst has signed, you can count like on really maybe on one hand the amount of players that he's whiffed on.
Right.
Like that says a lot. I think
three, maybe total.
I would, like, and like people might say, oh, like Davo. I'm like, well, Davo was like emergency option. Like there wasn't any expectations.
The
Like,
Vooten one hurt a little bit. I really was drinking that Kool-Aid, Justin.
but like, I think that one didn't come with nearly the. I thought that might have been a free, but I don't know if that nearly came with the same.
I think you're right. I think it did come on
Like,
as a free.
I mean, there's expectations, but I don't know if it was the, like, I think Sexy season when Orvex came in, it was the expectation was he's going to be the starter and Brujo was supposed to be the backup.
I remember
And
hearing Medunian, but more athletic. I remember that vividly.
and that was the thing. And that was, and you saw the way, like the highlights and the way, you saw. I think that was a pretty accurate description. And to be honest, like at the at the end of the day, Ernst is not going to hit on everything, but
Okay.
the fact that he has hit on a lot of things, like I think everyone kind of knew this move was going to happen because he went on loan last year and like he didn't play a single minute for the first team. Like,
Yeah.
I think you can say, okay, this was a bust. Like that'll happen with the
I,
with
I will
this.
I will wonder this because it's the timing for me, right? Because you think about it, if El Brujo did not have the performance against LAFC the way he did, and then remember we had COVID, like I wonder in that midst of that whole situation happening, did something happen to Matish's maybe confidence? And then of course you know how, I mean, we know how the Jim Curtin doghouse can be, and that could really damage a young player's confidence. So to me, like something in there, like I feel like something happened, and that's just me with my speculations. But I have to wonder what went down at that time period.
I don't think it's so much like confidence. I think the LAFC game was just like man, like we actually got something with this Martinez guy that I don't think I don't think most people thought that was going to happen. I think if there's no, we don't have the pandemic, we don't have the shutdown. I wonder if Orvet starts to get games. Like,
Yeah, it's a good point.
I think how Jim with players as they come in early, like he doesn't have a problem sitting a player. He doesn't have a problem moving on. But I mean, in that season, Brujo was kind of indispensable. Like, I don't especially we talk about on how disappointing the game against New England was. He was playing through an injury, and you could notice something was off, but he was still busting his ass and doing everything he could on a team that was clearly getting outplayed. And I think that just kind of cemented his status of like, you're not going to drop Brujo. Like, unless he leaves, I don't think, we can complain about his passing range, some of his touches. But when he's on the field, like, there's a reason that this defense is as good as it is because when you have someone like El Brujo playing in front of you, who is just going to make the midfielders, games a living nightmare and going to make them work extra hard to really get into the honest, the tough areas. I think that why it shows why Jack and Jakob can really play the way they are. It's just because El Brujo is one of the most indispensable players that Jim Curtin can rely on.
Absolutely, man. All right, so we move on to the crazy. I think to me this was the craziest news of the day. Sergio Santos. We had a report. Can you give me the? I have it right here. Pat Brennan first reported this from Cincinnati, and it was the report that Cincy and Sergio were close enough to a trade, and then Tommy Bogues dropped the Bogue bomb. Philadelphia, and it's complete. Sergio getting traded. Philly will receive $300K in GAM. And they can receive up to $700K in GAM with incentives involved as well. And look, to me, we were talking about the visa situation, why he wasn't in the lineup. And now that I'm like reflecting on it, may have been like a blind of possibly because they didn't want to risk any further injury because they knew that Cincinnati was interested. I mean, Chris Albright, he's a Union player, and he just lights up like a Christmas tree. And he saw that with Sergio Santos. I mean, for you, how you feeling about this move, Justin?
I'm okay with it, and I think there's a couple things, the reasons why I'm okay with it, and reasons why I think this is the best for the Union. One being, I mean, I love Sergio and I love his speed, but you know the limitations. You know his injury concerns, which is probably why the green card stuff. The green card stuff took a lot longer than it was expected to. Because hey, why risk? Yeah, why risk him getting injured if Cincinnati is first off offering like the 300,000 is guaranteed, and then the 700 in incentives. I hope it's not related to performances, because we know how if he can't stay healthy, it's it's not going to matter what the incentives are if he can't even remotely touch them.
Right.
I think, I mean, he was always going to be the backup here, especially now with Carranza and Ua, which I think, the Union are looking at it going, they know that partnership can work. They know they have a more reliable option in Corey, who, despite all we talk about, is the more reliable option. He's the one who's going to be able to actually play and actually, give you more minutes. And I think the reason why this move is good and happening is, you look at the way that the kids played the U20 level. Paxton and Quinn were balling out. And I think maybe Jim looks at this and goes, you know what? We don't need another forward. We can throw Quinn up there if we need to. We can throw Paxton. I think it also frees up, it also frees them up to get more time, which then frees up the potential for, and I'm still, holding out hope, and I think this will happen, is getting a number 8, a shuttler, similar to Jamiro, but without the headache and the delusion that he's a 10 and trying to create more problems than there is in the midfield. But I think that's the biggest thing that allows like most Union fans to go, okay, you know what? Yeah, I get it. Like, I get the move. And hey, if Chris Albright wants to keep poaching Union players, that it's not like, at this point that's just really his main strategy. And also, like, I don't know what they're expecting. I mean, this is definitely a
It's like our
backup
B team.
Well, it's yeah. But first of all, I mean, at this point, it is really Union Midwest, like Union 2.
If it wasn't for Brenner, they probably would have bought in Casper too.
Yeah, I seriously, it's just like people were joking. I saw someone joke that Chris Albright's doing this just so that he, if Ernst Tanner leaves, he can come back to get the job. It's like, well, what is he showing? That he knows how to acquire old Union players? I'm like, you can't do that when you are the Union GM. But no, I think it's like I said, overall, it's a move that, like, I think most fans are going to look at it and go, okay, like, it's actually a pretty decent piece of business, because even if they only hit half the incentives, you've basically made your money back for Sergio. Like, I mean, I believe, what was that? I know it was like 500 to like 750. I think it was in that range.
Yeah.
Like
third highest player on the team too.
Like, it's not a bad move overall. And it is what it is. But us to the AK Gaming, yes, that is a Chicago Red Stars scarf.
Hey,
I was there last year on my birthday.
On my
for the
birthday.
game, but yeah, no. Overall, Sergio move, it came out of nowhere, but
yeah,
I'm okay with it in the end.
Look, and I'm going to lump this in with Stuart Finley, who also was the last bit of news here today. He's going over to Oxford United, and it does come at an interesting time here for the Union, and obviously it does have something to do with the kids showing out the way they did. But it's weird because, to me, I've seen talent from these kids already. I feel like sometimes I watch these kids in a different lens of eyes because then like you have like the U.S. Open Cup trial where you have fans are saying, why are we putting these kids out there? But then we saw what happened in Eastern Conference Finals last year, and some fans were raving at that point. So I've seen the talent from the kids. You know what I haven't seen, Justin, is these kids playing a lot. That's where my skepticism comes. I'm all in for this. Like I think Quinn is a forward. Like to me, we talk about this plenty of time. To me, Quinn is a forward. To me, Paxton Aronson, he's flexible. He likes to attack. He's pretty dangerous in attacking. Like you can put him as a 10 supplement for Daniel Gazek. You could put him as a second forward if you want to kind of change things up and get him some minutes. Jack McGlynn, we know his struggles, but you can put him as a Shudler. And then Brendan Craig, I think more importantly, I think Craig really showed something. And you could attest to this more. I think Craig showed more in the U20s than all three of them did, or the other three did, because we knew what kind of talent they had, but we didn't know much about Brandon Craig. So I think by him showing what he did, it made it easy to dispose of Stuart Finley. Love the guy. I think he was really great in the dressing room as well. But this plan of this team has been to develop from these kids over the past couple seasons. I still think that a signing does need to come. I still think that you need to, like you said, someone that is very flexible, who could play in different positions, a Shudler, a midfielder, maybe possibly not as make a third option as a second forward. But I think some depth would help. And I've talked about it before. Would love like an MLS vet to come into this team who's played a lot of minutes, a lot of experience, who knows this league very well, and that can be a rotational piece here as well, man.
Yeah, I think, and I love Stewart, and it's a shame to see him go. I think he did provide a lot of stability when needed. But I think Brandon Craig 100% showed at the U20s and is showing with the U2 that he's ready. Like, there's a reason he's been on the bench, when he's available. It's because Jim doesn't just put the kids there because they signed a first team contract, the homegrown. He doesn't put you in that that 18 unless he knows unless he thinks you're ready for that time. And the one thing that I saw in the U20s is that Brendan Craig has a pretty good passing range. And I think that's one thing with the Union center backs that I think it's because of the way they play. I think it's more of a necessity now. But yeah, overall, I don't think the signing's going to come from the defensive position, although, maybe a trade for an MLS vet, a guy that's been around, we've seen that, the Union have done that multiple. That's why Elvis Powell was here last year, was a MLS vet, to help provide some stability and, minutes if needed. I could absolutely see someone like that. I mean, we did that with RJ Allen a few years back, and he didn't play a single game, but it didn't mean that he wasn't there, to provide a veteran presence and to provide that kind of stability. Like I said, my hope is still, even with getting the kids more minutes, hopefully, because I don't think the signings to come from up top. I think it's still, you've got to solidify that midfield, because I love Leon and I love Ali, but Ali is the one, quote unquote, providing the secondary runs, the offensive support outside of Gazdag. And I think you need more kind of production, more threats than what at this point what Leon's providing.
Absolutely. Quick takeaways from the Crew 0-0 draw.
First of all, that I'm surprised that Jim can change a formation. But also
Stewart's final game.
Yeah, but also I like the back three. Like, I know people are like, oh, the Union got outplayed. I mean, also was the fact that you started Chris Donovan and Corey Burke up top. Who I thought Chris Donovan did a decent job of trying to lead the Lions. But I think the flexibility to have your outside backs being able to bomb it, up and down with a little more freedom, I think that was good. But I'm surprised that they have the flexibility. But I also think that people say, "Oh, we should go to the 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3," and it's like, no, the front two is not an issue. Like, I'm okay with the two striker system. You can change up a whole bunch of systems and still have a front two. And I've been saying for years that the Union have a system and they have the center backs to be able to do a back three if they need to, or hell, play Kai as one of the center backs and have Matt Real as a wing back, like, or vice versa. Like you have the people to throw a back three in there. So I think what this shows is, especially say the Union are down a goal, and maybe maybe if you take off a midfield player, you move to a back three, and maybe you start throwing more offensive players up. Like there is that ability now to kind of be flexible, and let's just see if Jim actually continues to be tactically flexible, because as we all know, Jim can be set in his ways, and it can be tough to see rotation, whether it be tactically, whether it be the players involved. There's a lot of things that Jim doesn't seem to be flexible on, but I think he obviously with the circumstances of who was available, I think you kind of needed to be flexible.
Yeah, look, I'm not upset with the result. It's a draw in Columbus, and we've talked about our struggles in Columbus. I think for me, I'm just starting to get a little annoyed. I'm not angry, but a little annoyed, because I just think that this attack is just not giving us enough. I mean, I think that Carranza, Ua, and Gazdak can be very, very lethal. We haven't seen that full potential. I mean, you've heard Matt Doyle talking about how this is bad to watch now. Like this is a sore on the eyes now, because you're running the same type of system, and I feel like all the MLS knows exactly what to do, because you're running the same exact system over and over again. And you even heard Jim talk about how you need to possess the ball more now as well. So I love the tactical flexibility, like you said, and I think that we need to continue seeing that. We need to see the Union not be scared with the ball at their feet. Like, we get it, turnover, you guys are fast, but you got to find other ways. You got to be flexible like that. Even the best teams around the world know how to change it up, know how to adjust, and I know Jim knows how to do that. Like, we all forget about 2019, but he did do that. I know it was 2 formations and 2 different type of systems, and it also helps when you got Olsinho, but we need some sort of different look, and I think teams are definitely starting to fall into that. But we shall see. But Justin, it's gonna be a good test here tomorrow night, right? We got Friday Night Lights down in Chester, Pennsylvania, with tickets worth $20.26 because of the World Cup. We're celebrating. It's alumni game, celebrating the first ever game against DC United at the Link. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So, Justin, let's look ahead at DC United, and we're from RFK Refugees. We're gonna have our man Ted Meyer coming on in to talk some DC and Philly. Ted, what is happening? Look at this kid, Justin. What is this?
Hey guys, sorry, I'm on my phone right now. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Don't have
the relaxed fit
we love
too.
This. We love this for you.
Gotta be relaxed without DC's playing right now. That's for sure. As of late.
I hear that, man.
What's it with you guys honoring Leonard Pahoy? He's like a more of a DC legend than a Philly legend. What's going on with that?
I think that one. I think they were pulling for for alumni that were available, because like Shannon's in the area, and the far fans are back. It's like, all right, who can we pull? Pahoy. Wait, he played for both teams. Like, oh, well, it's Union alumni night. Maybe we can just kind of.
Can we get Chris Pontius too, like Danny Cruz?
I was gonna say, yeah. Let's go for the dual team players.
It'd be like if DC decided to honor Dax McCarty or something like that. Like that's what it kind of feels like to me. But,
or like if DC were to honor Sebastian Latou.
No, that's true. Sebastian Latou is a little bit more reasonable than Poy was just kind of like. I mean, he's offside a lot for DC. He became kind of like a bad folk hero. I don't know what the term would be. I just remember the only thing I remember about him is that people were trying to get him on the All-Star game by playing as him and scoring goals with him in FIFA, whatever FIFA version that was. Because if you scored goals in that, then you got votes for the All-Star game. So we were trying to get him on the All-Star team by doing that. It was apparently pretty difficult. He wasn't a very good player, believe it or not.
Believe it or not. All right. Well, listen, Ted, I've been dying to ask you. You are part of the RFK refugees. What the heck is going on at RFK right now, man? I heard that was in smoke. Like, what's going on, Ted?
Man, it's the raccoons have taken over the place. It's abandoned. They're burning trash. They're trying to figure out how to work the fryers. Like, I mean, come on, man, that place has been infested with them for years. So they're just trying to figure out how to live in the place. Who knows? I'm very curious. They said it was like burning trash, but they don't say like how the trash was burned. If somebody was burning it, it was very surreal to see pictures of the inside of the place, and like the turf is like gone. There's just like growing, I'm assuming, through the cracks and like the old concrete where I guess they laid the turf down, and it's rather surreal to see that stadium look so empty. So
Yeah, and what was it? That's why I had to retweet the Charlie Bone. It's like, man, you live right by it, and it's like, all the asbestos and all the stuff in there. It'll be an improvement, and then the running joke was, $8.5 million of capital improvements were done to RFK, and I'm like, man, that might actually be an improvement on whatever, clearing out whatever asbestos and trash. Hey, maybe it scares the raccoons. Who knows? That's you
could see the raccoons like scurrying out of the stadium when when the fire was going off.
Oh my God.
Sure.
All right. Well, Ted, I also wanted to ask. I'm sure you saw the advertisement for MLS Rivalry Week. They put us as part of the whole package. Like, you got the Rocky Mountain Derby, you got the Cascadia, and then they throw. Oh, you got the Florida Derby now. I don't know what they're calling it down there, but then you got Philly and DC. How do you feel as a part of the other side with the MLS's advertisement of Rivalry Week?
I mean, it's a little sad from one sense, because we had probably about as close to like a Yankees, Red Sox, Lakers, Celtics type of rivalry to MLS, and it was DC United and the Metro Stars or the New York Red Bulls, like full, like a whole treasure trove of just like odd events, weird games, crazy moments. And that rivalry it's basically dead. I mean, if you ask anybody, like, I still get up for going to see, the team play the Red Bulls and play them. And, it's a game I always want to watch. But, as far as the Philly rivalry, I know a lot of DC fans are like, MLS is trying to, like, they've got their New York derby now that they're trying to, like, force so that, New York plays New York. That's their new rivalry. So now they're like, well, we got to find some other rivalries. What about DC and Philly? So I don't know about you all, but for DC fans, it's like we really don't have the same, like, I guess, affinity or hatred of Philly like we do for the Red Bulls. So it's sad. It's sad in one sense, because I remember when DC New York used to be, or the Red Bulls used to be one of the premier rivalries in the league. So it's sad to see, but we still like to beat you guys. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think that, like, I remember there was a point where, like, Union DC games, there were like, some of the games with like ugly red cards and chat. Like, there's always been like moments, but at this point, we joke that there is no rival. Well, the closest thing to a rival at this point, especially maybe based off recency bias for the Union, is NYCFC. And it's just because especially the past few seasons, especially last year with the unfortunate end to the season, it just feels like the Union DC rivalry, or whatever you want to call it, it's just, with expansion, has kind of faded. Like, whatever the early memories were,
good point,
has it has basically kind of just gone. Like, for me, it's not like gone away, but it's like it's not the same as it used to be.
Well, I think too, like, history, like, to me, like, a good rivalry, it's just the battles throughout the regular season or in the playoffs, like in any sport in total. And, like, obviously Philly and DC, I don't even think we've even met up in the playoffs before. And so like to me, I think that's a big part about it. Like right now, like if you ask a lot of Union fans, like they won't even tell you like the Red Bull are their top rivalry. It's NYCFC
Mhm.
because of some of the playoff battles that we've had and some of these epic regular season matches that we've had as well. So it's a lot to do with it, but obviously the expansion of the league, you got so many new teams. I mean, you're forcing the Hell is Real Derby in Ohio. I mean, you got 3 clubs now in Texas, and so the MLS is going to find itself in tough spots, and you're going to see teams like, trying to start a rivalry, I guess. We'll see.
Well, I mean, it also probably doesn't help that DC's been borderline awful now for really probably since 2018, and even that was like, I mean, finishing fourth in the East is not exactly, and a one round playoff exit is not exact. I mean, that's literally the last success. I mean, we've had where I think we even won a playoff series has been in 2012. Pretty sure I'm right about that. So I guess we won. Well, I guess we did. We won one of the playing games. I remember that in like 2014, I think, or 2015, I want to say. But other than that, it's been a wasteland as far as DC's concerned. So I mean that doesn't help things either with a Philly rivalry or with a Red Bulls rivalry. When you're bad, your games kind of lose their luster. So I mean I think with any of these teams, New York, Philly, Red Bulls. I mean if DC were to be consistently good and they'd be playing, big time playoff games that matter, and there was something crazy that happened or something controversial, then maybe we might have something. But until then, yeah, I kind of agree with you.
So it's funny that you mentioned that the success. I did not think that these would be this bad this year, but obviously like the Hernan Losada stuff kind of blew up, and kind of just explain from your perspective, Ted, like the whole Hernan situation. Where's DC going from here?
If you know, please send your letters to Audi Field. No, I'm kidding. Partly, yeah, that's been the. I mean, it's crazy to think like we came into this year thinking like, okay, so we're not a team that's going to spend the most money, but we have a coach and a system that was a lot of fun to watch in 2021. Like it was finally like I just remember during that stretch, I would say from, July to August, I looked forward to like turning on a DC game and watching them because I knew like they're not a great team, but they're going to be entertaining. You're going to see a style of play that's going to generate chances and shots. And, I'm not, saying Ben Olsen didn't have a tactical strategy, but there was certainly a lack of identity. There was, I mean, you had Benny Ball, I guess, but like even then, I feel like Benny Ball was just one of those concepts people threw out, but didn't have a real understanding of like how Ben Olsen coaches, and it seemed like he would try to change, and then he would just kind of revert back to this defensive style, and it was refreshing to have Losada, and I think Losada also like he did things like with his lineup choices and everything else that like I won't say you like listen to the fans, but it felt like he and the fans were on the same wavelength as far as like evaluation of talent. He was willing to play younger players. I mean, you look at, I don't know if Kevin Paredes, gets the $7 million deal to Wolfsburg without if Ben Olsen is still in charge, because Ben Olsen just did not want to play young players. And Losada seemed more than willing to throw out young guys, give them opportunities, and give them chances. And Paredes was one of them, and he was absolutely fantastic. But I mean, from my perspective, it was definitely a shock when he was let go. Like it was, and I think it definitely caused some very like serious, irreparable harm to the fan base as a whole, because this was a guy who really like had a major charm offensive. He hung posters of the supporters, and the supporters groups on away games. Like I think he lobbied like the team was like going to kick out a fan group for I believe it was smoke bombs or something, and he like basically like lobbied to say no, we need fans in there. So he endeared himself to a lot of fans. Now I think a lot of people have learned the situations that came about. Obviously the Chris Seitz when he told his story. Some are still, you still read on some of the Twitter blogs that people still think like they shouldn't have let him go. But it was pretty clear that he was certainly not a person who thought lowly of himself and thought he knew this better than everybody else. And that's a problem when you have training staff and, team doctors saying, look, like Andy Nahar can only go 45 minutes. Otherwise, he's going to like a really high risk for injury. And then you play him 50 minutes and he goes down with a serious injury and is out for a month. That's a problem. You can't have that. And particularly, I think also since the team is now paying a lot more staff, they've hired a lot more staff around them since the stadium opened. It's been slow. It's been incredibly slow. I think too slow. But they have sort of staffed up in a lot of ways, and you're paying all this money to the staff, and the coach isn't even listening to them. So that's not a good thing. But then that leaves, what's the direction of this club? And you hired Chad Ashton, and I think for a lot of people, Chad Ashton kind of felt like sort of a return to the Ben Olsen days and to, that. And I think we saw it really through May and June because it's very clear that he tried to change up how this team played. They played with like a 3 holding midfielders. It was a combination of Drew Skundrich, Russell Canals, Jafal, who's a new draft pick, who actually hasn't looked too bad. And basically Chris Durkin, who's returned from Belgium. And basically it just wasn't working. They were slow, predictable, everything. And then it really changed when, Orlando, they went back to the counterattacking system. Believe it or not, you play the team the way they were intended to play in preseason, and suddenly they look a lot better and they score more goals. So, it's been – I really don't know what the direction of this team is now. They're starting to talk a little bit more, but you still don't get a sense where is this team going other than just we're going to be like a middle-of-the-road spending team. We're maybe going to develop more academies. It's academy players. I think they're jealous of what you guys are doing in Philly and are trying to take some of that back a little bit because you guys have been poaching down in what they consider our territory, especially the Baltimore area.
Right.
So I don't know. It's other than I know they're playing next week and they're certainly going to be around for the foreseeable future. I really don't know the direction. I think that's frustrating. And I think that's what the team needs to, the front office, if they're going to be here, they need to start communicating. Not to make you guys egos too big, but I thought Philly have been brilliant. They've been our direction is we're going to develop players. We can't spend. And that's fine. If DC's look, if Levian comes out and says, look, I don't have the money to spend, and he has started to say those types of things, but what we're going to do is we're going to develop players. We're going to, we're going to use analytics. They hired Lucy Rushton, just some type of idea of what is the plan, long-term vision. In 5 years, what do you want people to say about DC? And Philly has that vision and DC doesn't. And that's been the difference.
It's funny because I hear you talk about DC, and as I'm here during the NHL draft day and wearing my Flyers t-shirt, it's exactly how I felt watching the Flyers this year. The same way you feel about DC. You just are sitting there wondering okay, I know this season is it's done. We're not going to compete for anything. But what's going to happen in the future? And you have a tough time trusting in the organization, the front office to actually make the right improvements, and it's tough. I haven't heard from anyone, Ted, about some sort of action with United. And I mean, look, I think that the youth, what we're seeing, the youth movement in MLS is big, but I think for winning, you want to first start that foundation. You could buy players, you can buy European players if you want. I don't think what you're seeing right now, Gareth Bale and whatnot. And it's funny because DC was always considered as one of those teams because I think we had less amount of teams in the league. But it was one of those spots for DPs. Obviously, you guys got lucky with Wayne Rooney, but I think you guys got to find that system that works for you, and then you can build players and spend some money on that important piece as well. It's kind of what you're seeing around the league.
Yeah, and I mean, to their credit, they've had one major success that might potentially save them, in that they finally, other than your Wayne Rooney's, even your Lucho had a very up and down kind of career here. They seem to have a designated player that jumped right off the gate, fit in with the team, fit into the system and the style of play. And has probably DC could finish bottom of the table, and Taxi Puntas could have an incredible career and win Newcomer of the Year. I mean, it could be that type of season. I think he's got. I mean, he had a hat trick that's kind of inflating things last week, but I mean, 10 games, 9 goals, 3 assists. He's I think I saw a stat that he's on the fastest hot streak of any MLS player, even above Marco and Jaime. And I mean, that's at the very least like sort of a player you can maybe build this team around. Like your goal now should be find guys that help him out, find guys that make him that elevate him, and he elevates players. He's shown an ability. Before Michael Estrada was not looking good, and Taxi really came in, and he's looked actually, I think, best when he's been around Taxi. So I think he had an assist last game. So they have that. We do have, I feel, that centerpiece now. Finally, we had a big designated player signing that appears to be right now. I mean, it's still early. I mean, he could pick up an injury. It could all fall apart. But right now, he looks like he is the real deal. He fits right in. He's much better, I think, than anybody anticipated. There are a lot of people even like that were skeptical, like looking at his pedigree. But he's been honestly fantastic, and that's been a very good thing to see. That we at least have some sort of like glimmer of hope. It may be like a Bradley Beal situation with the Wizards or Juan Soto with the Nationals, where it's like literally that's all we got. So we're gonna hammer that. We're gonna hammer that Trav. Oh, look, we got Taxi. He's good. Like, come see him. But yeah.
Wow, it's had no love for Carson Wentz, huh, man? It's a tough love here.
Man, I am no. I refuse to talk about that team that plays in the dump in Landover, Maryland. Trust me, I'm not talking. I'm not talking about them. I'm mentioning their name. Nothing.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you, Ted. All right. So what you would say, like the right now, the tactics have been flexible for DC United under Ashton?
It's been, I don't know if I call it, it's been, I don't know if I call it flexible. It's been like I truly think he sees this. I'm sure this guy, I mean, you got to think about Chad Ashton. He's been an assistant on this team through multiple, through Tom Sohn, really 4 coaches, Tom Sohn, Kurt Analfo, Ben Olsen, and Hernan Losada. Like, he's been here for over 10 years. And I think he is seeing this. I think this is essentially a job interview or a learn on the job type of interview for him. I mean, I don't know how you can be an assistant for this long. He was given the reins to the team early when they still, they're still alive for the playoffs, and they could go on an incredible run coming up in the next few weeks and be right in the playoff hunt. Like, it can change that quickly. But he's really I think he was trying to make his stamp on, I can coach. He's been doubted like by fans, everybody and I think he tried to shift the team. He tried to do a little bit of a shift, and it completely blew up and backfired in his face. And I expect this team now. This team is in crunch mode. They've talked about, how every game is a final now. We need to go out and win every game. I think you're going to see them come out pretty similarly to how they came out in Orlando. They won, so it's pretty easy to do that. They're going to play, 5 goals. So, yeah, and this was a team, by the way, that also hadn't scored more than 1 goal in like all of the month of May and June. So, I think he's going to come out that. I hope he does. Come out in that formation. I'm not expecting 5 goals against Philly. I think you guys are a much, much more organized team. I think also I won't say I follow Orlando well, but from what I've read, it's kind of like Orlando made a tactical switch, maybe in anticipation of a 3D mid holding type of field, and it just completely backfired in their face. So I'm expecting them to come out in sort of that 3 forward formation. They're going to want to press the game. They're desperate right now. They need to pick up wins. They've lost far too many games at home. I mean, it's really crunch time for them as far as trying to get victories, to get wins, and to put themselves back into the playoffs. And Ashton's fighting, I think, for a job. So I think if he makes the playoffs, he makes a case for him, being the coach coming in 2023. As much as fans won't like it, I mean, that's kind of that's a potential thing that could happen. So we'll see. We'll see what he's learned. And it'll be interesting to see how he approaches this game, whether he makes any changes. One missing player from last week was Andy Nahark due to a yellow card suspension. He's only played like 8 games, but he picked up 5 yellow cards or something like that. Who
my
knew?
God.
Like he's been out for a month and he played one game and then he got suspended. So he'll be back. He makes a difference as far as this team. So where he'll play, he's been playing in the center back role, kind of this like weird roaming center back. Hasn't been as effective as it was last year, but I mean, they also haven't been playing a system that's conducive to it. So yeah, it's going to be. It'll be interesting to see what happens over these next few months. And the window's open. They got 2 open DP slots, so maybe they'll have a signing or 2 up their sleeves as well.
It could be interesting for as well. Hey, listen, Ted. Look, for Ashton. Look, you saw. I'm not saying Ashton could be Jim Curtin, but Jim did start off kind of like in a similar way that Ashton did. I will say that the patience from the FO definitely helped Jim become what he is today. But hey, anything could definitely happen. Justin, what I want to ask you, man. DC's coming off of a big win. Like, let's put it this way: DC's coming off of a really big win against Orlando Monday night. Now, this team, I wouldn't say hasn't been struggling, but hasn't been in tip-top form. And look, we did see them lose to Chicago a week ago, or but a little over a week ago. So I mean, for you, Justin, like, are you concerned? How confident are you feeling going into tomorrow night?
Pretty confident, and I think. Listen, people talk about, it was a crap game. Yeah, it was a crap game from an offensive perspective. It was a 1-0 game, in a game in which El Brujo, was missing for a decent portion of the second half because of the second yellow card. The defense have played solid. Like I'm not concerned, and Ted was right. Like Orlando made defensive changes. They come, you come off the crazy Open Cup win. They're rotating. They have injury problems. They're playing a back 3, and between Schlegel, Smith, and Jansen. Like I watched that game. They had no clue what was going on, and it was DC took advantage of that. Like it was not even within 10 minutes, it's already 2-0, which disappointing when you write a preview article right before that game and then have to tell Tim to update it several times before it goes out because Taxi just keeps scoring. And listen, Taxi is, he's the person to watch right now. Like that is clear. He's going to be the main focus. But unlike the second half of the Chicago game and the Columbus game, you have El Brujo back. You're gonna have the kids back. You're gonna have a mostly healthy roster. I think listen. DC is coming to come in strong, and Ted's right. They're gonna be desperate for points, but you've seen when teams try to play that pressing game against the Union, it tends to at least create a lot of chances. And it hasn't always blown up in their faces, but it's just because the Union haven't been finishing those chances. The Union have created a lot of chances when teams try to play that pressing style against them. And unless you're Red Bull or a team that does it regularly, you see that it doesn't really work. And it worked for DC against Orlando, but man, Orlando just, with all the rotations and all the formations, they looked bad. Like that game was struggle bus FC. I kept looking back at that score because I'm like, oh, the U.S. women are on. Let me throw, and I'm looking. I'm like, and people are like, "What's this DC game?" Like, what are you talking about? And I just keep seeing the score just keep rising and rising and rising. I'm like, okay, like this is a little like and I figured this this would come up when you come off of 5 goals, and it's like, well, let's put some context on 5 goals. So listen, I think any fan's gonna be concerned when you're not, you're quote unquote struggling, but again, you're still in second place. You only suffered your second loss of the season, and the team's been a little stale, but stale and getting points is better than nothing. And if DC does try to play this pressing style. I mean, we saw it against NYCFC. There can be a lot of space in behind, and the Union certainly have the players to get in behind. So I think for me, that'll be the question is, does Chad Ashton continue this knowing that the Union are the counterattacking team, that if they're going to try to force the issue, the Union have the players to be able to really, push the agenda. And I mean, if they, we talk about all the chances the Union have, if they can actually finish a few of these chances, it'll be an interesting game.
Playing against DC United's defense is a very good cure to finishing issues. Let me just say, because one thing left out of that game, it was 3-0 with about 30 minutes to go, and then it was 3-2 with 20 minutes to go, and then it was 4-2 and then 4-3. So DC's defense is not. If there's one storyline of that's going to need improvement, it's or one part of the team that is in desperate need of improvement. It's this team defensively. They have been the clown car, to say the least, to just defensive errors and mistakes. So something to keep in mind.
I mean, you say that, man, but listen, these guys have been struggling to score. I believe we haven't scored more than 2 goals in a single game, and I'm not saying they've been playing bad, but I'll be realistic. Like I'm expecting 3 points tomorrow. Like with everything being what we're seeing, like I expect the Union to walk out of the tube tomorrow night with 3 points, but I won't remain to see that. But all right, so let's get to the nitty gritty here. Let's do the predictions here. Ted, what I want is a prediction, but since this is a Union podcast, what we want from you is a key. How did the Union beat DC United?
Truth be told, zero in on Taxi. Don't allow Gressel or Brad Smith to have free looks at crosses, and you'll probably be pretty successful because, I mean, if you can hold this team to 1 or 0 goals, you're probably going to win the game because defensively this team is going to make some sort of catastrophic error, and they're going to give up a goal or 2 or 3. It's really that simple. It's if you can keep Taxi in check, you'll probably stand a pretty good chance because then they have to find some other way to beat you. If you don't allow yourself to get caught, pushing up and then get caught on counters, defend that well, you're probably going to have a pretty good time. Now, if you get stretched and it allows, DC's, defensive midfielders to push up, they're allowed to sort of have free reign on the sort of right side and cross balls in, then you're going to have a tougher time, and they're probably going to score goals. But you're going to score goals on this team. Like, there's just no other way around it. You're going to score, 2 or 3 goals would be what you're going to have because the defense is, even in that win, the defense was incredibly poor. So they had about 20, 30 minutes. They were pretty decent, but the most of the time it was just they still gave up 3 goals. Like, even when they played probably semi-decent, they still gave up 3 goals. So,
okay. All right, just before I ask you, Ted, prediction?
3-1 Philly.
3-1 Philly. Okay. Justin, so before we get to predictions and key, I saw on Twitter, listen, the kids balled out. They absolutely balled out with the U20s. But do you think that there's a shot that they start tomorrow night? Any of them?
Yeah, I actually think they could. I think realistically it's good. It would be either Quinn or Paxton, I think, and I think they would probably start in the midfield. But yeah, I think there's a realistic chance. I think especially after the way they played, and especially now with the sales of Stuart Finley and Sergio, soon to be leaving. I think this opens up a lot of opportunities for the kids. So I could see them. I mean, or I could see them making a solid, 30-minute cameo. It all depends because like people say, oh, they should play. Well, they did play a lot of games, in a short amount of time to, do as successful as they did. So it's like
they're young; they'll be fine.
I mean, it was a lot, especially CONCACAF. making it to the U20 World Cup,
They
making
got
it
another
to
first brawl, Justin.
God, that was God. Thank God, no, the Union kids were involved. That was an ugly. But yeah, making it to U20 World Cup, making it to the Olympics for the first time since '08. Like, I mean, people seem to overlook that fact, but that's a pretty big thing. And winning the U20 CONCACAF championship, and helping U.S. really push it hard in an area where, I mean, let's be honest, Mexico on the youth level for a while dominated. And it's clear that the tide's changing. And yeah, these kids were part of it. So yeah, I could see them playing, but Jim, it'll be the usual lineup, which at home is not a bad thing. Like
That's
people,
why I'd be surprised if it happens, because it's Jim. But also too, Justin, we do need Carranza, Ua, and Gazek to you know what I'm saying. So I think that that kind of is important as well. But we'll see. It would surprise me, but we'll see what happens. But prediction, and what do you think our key is to winning tomorrow night?
I'm gonna have to agree with Ted. I was initially gonna go 2-1, but I think 3-1. And I think the key is gonna be that first 10 to 15 minutes is seeing if DC is gonna press, seeing how they adjust, because I mean, I was talking about it. The Union have the speed to get in behind. They have the players to stretch this team, and with Gazdag, with Bedoya making those late runs. And if you play the kids, like, you have a lot of players that can make those late runs and stretch the field. And listen, we know how the Union can shut down a contributor. They've done it in most of the games this season. They've shut down the team's best attacking mid or striker. So the Union know how to do that. And I think if they can shut down Taxi, and if they can control the crosses as they tend to do, because a lot of teams have a tough time playing in the middle with the Union, so they try to cross it from out wide. And when you have this the center backs that you do, who are playing so well and have such a good read of the game, if that's the route that they're going to go, and they're going to allow the Union to really play the ball over the top, I think that'll be the key to seeing how this goes. I always say the first 10, 15 minutes to me is some of the most important, minutes of the game, because I think it kind of gives teams how they're going to feel each other out. And I think if the Union can really dominate that first 10, 15 minutes and really play their game and really get, be on the front foot instead of just reactionary counterattacking, and kind of be more, productive in those areas, I can easily see it being 3-1.
Okay. All right. 3-1 for both of these gentlemen. All right. Well, Ted, listen, where are you going to watch the game tomorrow night?
Either from home or on the road. I'm currently splitting my time between two different cities in Virginia, so we're heading back to Richmond. So depending on how quickly we leave, how quickly we get out. It is 7:30, so theoretically I can make it home to watch it. So, but it'll be on the home or on the road, one of the two.
Ted gets me, man. He gets me. I have the same issues as well, man. When you got a game going on, you're trying to watch, you're traveling, man. It's never fun, man. Well, listen, Ted. Listen, we always love having you guys on. We love the RFK refugees. Plug away the RFK refugees so people can check them out for their DC needs, man.
Yeah, so we've kind of split things up, either through marketing or from just a perspective. We're trying to give the Washington Spirit their own kind of show, not just a part of ours. So we have Kindred Spirits, where we follow Washington Spirit. Then we have United 96, where we cover DC United. So if you're searching the RFK Refugees podcast, you'll get a trailer that directs you over to to United 96 if you want to listen to DC. So we do a live show though, 8:30. We're under the RFK Refugees podcast network, so we've kind of tried to expand things out a little bit. We had a Loud United show that we kind of unfortunately one of the guys had to kind of drop off for a bit, but hopefully that'll be back soon. But we're trying to cover it all in DC for sure. So definitely check it out if you guys like talking DC. We have a lot of fun. So definitely check us out.
That is awesome, man. We love it. It's now on the network. It's the whole network. We love it, man. Good stuff, Ted.
Yeah,
Listen, Ted,
we got like a staff of 20. Like, oh, it's great. Just kidding.
right next to NBC Sports DC.
Exactly. Exactly.
We love it. Well, listen, Ted, nothing but the best for you guys down there. Keep killing it as always, and best of luck tomorrow and tomorrow's match as well, man.
Yeah, you're not gonna wish me too much luck. I know that. Thanks, guys.
In the 90s, it's a different story. Before and after, Ted. It's I'm a nice guy. All right.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for another episode of Duke by the River. Thank you so much to Justin, and thank you so much for Ted as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you enjoyed the content here today, hit that like button, subscribe for your further live viewings of Duke by the River. Of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts. We're available on Duke by the River podcast. So make sure you subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, that is Justin Double Fine Friedberg. Of course, I'm El Parcero Philly, and we are